The rain came down in sheets that night, turning the cobblestone street outside Marcello's into a river of reflected neon and shadow. I should have been used to it by then, the late shifts, the aching feet, the way my uniform clung to my skin from kitchen steam and humidity. But something felt different as I wiped down the last table near the window, watching the city blur behind the glass. Different, wrong, electric. I told myself it was exhaustion. 3 doubles in 4 days would make anyone feel off balance. Medical school debt didn't pay itself, and my nursing degree gathering dust in a drawer wouldn't either, not while I was slinging pasta to tourists and local businessmen who barely looked at me. The bell above the door chimed. I turned, already forming my apologetic smile. "I'm sorry. We're just about to." The words died in my throat. 2 men entered first, water dripping from their expensive black coats. They moved like soldiers know, like predators, their eyes scanning the restaurant with the kind of precision that made my pulse spike. Behind them, a woman in a wheelchair was guided through the doorway by a third man, this one older, gentler in his movements. But it was the man who followed last who stole the air from my lungs. He was tall, taller than seemed fair, with dark hair pushed back from a face that could have been carved from marble, if marble could look that dangerous. His suit was immaculate despite the rain, charcoal gray that probably cost more than my rent for a year. But it was his eyes that held me frozen. Dark, penetrating. The kind of gaze that didn't just look at you but through you, cataloging every secret you'd ever kept. Power radiated from him like heat from a furnace. "We need a table." His voice was low, commanding, with an accent that wrapped around the words like velvet over steel. Italian maybe, though his English was perfect. I glanced at the clock. "We're technically closed, but then it won't be a problem." It wasn't a question. Marco, my manager, appeared from the kitchen, and I watched his face go pale. Actually pale. In 2 years of working here, I'd never seen Marco afraid of anything. "Mr. Valorian." Marco's voice cracked slightly. "Of course. The private room. Right away." Valorian. The name echoed in my head, familiar in the way of half-heard warnings and whispered rumors. Valentino Valorian. I'd heard kitchen staff mention that name before, always in hushed tones, always with a glance toward the door. The Valorian family doesn't ask twice. You don't say no to them. They own half the city, and the other half is too smart to admit it. My hands trembled as I grabbed menus, but Marco took them from me. "Bianca, help Mrs. Valorian with her coat, and get whatever they need." The woman in the wheelchair was elderly, perhaps 70, with silver hair swept back in an elegant twist. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, but something about the way she held herself rigid, controlled, spoke of pain she was trying to hide. I moved toward her instinctively, my nursing training overriding my fear. "May I help you with your coat, ma'am?" She looked up at me, and for a moment, I saw surprise flicker across her features, as if kindness was unexpected, as if being treated like a person instead of an obligation was rare. "Thank you, dear." Her voice was warm, cultured, but strained. As I carefully helped her out of the damp coat, I noticed the way her left hand trembled, the slight drag in her right leg even though she was seated, the tightness around her mouth that spoke of chronic pain. "Are you comfortable?" I asked softly. "Would you like a cushion? The chairs here aren't the most supportive." Her eyes widened slightly. "You're very observant." "I'm a nurse," I said before I could stop myself. "Well, trained as one. I work here now." Behind me, I felt him watching. Valentino Valorian. I could feel his gaze like a physical weight between my shoulder blades. A nurse. The woman, Mrs. Valorian, studied me with renewed interest. "How extraordinary. And you're working in a restaurant?" Heat crept up my neck. "Student loans. The hospital shifts didn't, it's complicated. It always is." She reached out and touched my hand. Hers was cold, trembling slightly. "What's your name?" "Bianca. Bianca Moretti. Bianca." She said it like she was tasting the word. Beautiful name for a beautiful girl. "Mother." Valentino's voice cut through the moment like a blade. "We should move to the private room." "But Mrs." Valorian ignored him, her eyes still on me. "Bianca, I wonder if you might. I've been having trouble with my right shoulder. The doctors give me pills, but they don't help. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you?" I should have said no, should have smiled politely and stepped away, but I saw the pain in her eyes, the desperate hope, and my instincts took over. "May I?" I gestured to her shoulder. She nodded. Gently, I placed my hands on her shoulder, feeling for tension, for the telltale signs of nerve compression or muscle strain. My fingers found the spot almost immediately, a knot of tension near her scapula, likely radiating pain down her arm and up her neck. Here, I said softly. This is where the nerve is being compressed. If you apply pressure like this, I demonstrated gently, showing her the angle, and combine it with heat therapy and specific stretches, it should help more than medication alone. I felt the moment she relaxed, the sudden release of tension she'd been holding. She exhaled, and for the first time since she'd entered, she smiled. Remarkable, she breathed. When I looked up, Valentino Valorian was staring at me with an expression I couldn't read, dark eyes fixed on my face with an intensity that made my stomach flip. "Who are you?" he asked quietly, and somehow I knew he wasn't asking my name. Thunder rolled outside, and the lights flickered once. "Just a waitress," I whispered. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "No, you're not." The private room felt smaller than it should have, despite the mahogany table that could seat 12, and the crystal chandelier casting warm light over everything. Or maybe it just felt small because Valentino Valorian took up so much space without even trying. I set down the water glasses with hands that refused to stay steady, hyper-aware of every sound, the clink of ice, the rustle of fabric as his men positioned themselves by the doors, the soft classical music filtering through hidden speakers. "Bianca," Mrs. Valorian's voice drew my attention back. "Sit with me a moment. I should really... Please." Her eyes were kind but firm. Humor an old woman. I glanced toward the door, where Marco was conspicuously absent, probably hiding in the kitchen, smart man. But something in Mrs. Valorian's expression made refusing feel impossible, so I lowered myself into the chair beside, her wheelchair. Across the table, Valentino watched. He hadn't spoken since that moment in the main dining room, but I felt his attention like a spotlight, examining, calculating, deciding things about me I couldn't begin to guess. "How long have you been experiencing the shoulder pain?" I asked Mrs. Valorian, falling back into the familiar rhythm of assessment because it was easier than acknowledging her son's stare. 6 months, since the accident. She said it casually, but I caught the way her jaw tightened. "The doctors say I'm healing well, considering. But they don't understand that, well, still means I wake up every morning feeling like I'm trapped in a body that won't obey me." My heart clenched. I knew that frustration had seen it in every patient who'd lost their independence, their autonomy, their sense of self. "What kind of accident?" I asked gently. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. One of Valentino's men shifted toward the table, but a single look from Arisha, their boss, froze him in place. When Valentino finally spoke, his voice was silk over razors. "A car accident. She was fortunate to survive." The way he said fortunate made it clear survival had been anything but certain, and the way his fingers curled against the white tablecloth suggested the accident hadn't been an accident at all. "I'm sorry," I said quietly, meeting Mrs. Valorian's eyes. "That must have been terrifying." "You're the first person who said that." Her voice cracked slightly. "Everyone else tells me how lucky I am, how grateful I should be, as if gratitude erases fear." I reached out without thinking, covering her cold hand with mine. "You're allowed to be afraid. Trauma doesn't disappear just because you survived it." Silence stretched between us, heavy and raw. Then Valentino stood. The movement was fluid, controlled, but it sent my pulse skyrocketing. He circled the table slowly, his footsteps barely audible on the plush carpet, until he stood behind his mother's wheelchair. His hands rested on the handles, protective and possessive all at once. "You studied nursing where?" he asked me. "Street Catherines. I graduated 2 years ago. Top of your class?" I blinked. "How did you, I'm guessing." His lips curved slightly. "But I'm right, aren't I?" Heat crept up my neck. "Third. I was third. Because you worked full-time while studying." It wasn't a question. Those dark eyes saw too much, cataloged too much. "And now you're here, serving food, because the hospital system chews up idealistic nurses and spits them out drowning in debt." I wanted to look away but couldn't. "That's one way to put it. It's the only way to put it." He leaned down, speaking softly to his mother in rapid Italian. I caught maybe one word in 5 dolore, fidarsi doctor, pain, trust. Mrs. Valorian responded in the same language, her tone gentle but firm. They went back and forth for a moment, a private conversation I had no right to witness, before she reached up and patted her son's hand. "Bianca," she said, switching back to English. "My son would like to offer you a position." My stomach dropped. "A position?" Valentino moved around the wheelchair until he faced me directly. This close, I could see the faint scar along his left eyebrow, the way his jaw tightened when he was deciding something. He radiated danger the way other men radiated cologne, inescapable and intoxicating. "My mother needs proper care. The nurses the agency sends are incompetent. They treat her like a task to be completed, not a person." His voice was controlled, but I heard the edge beneath it, the fury he kept leashed. "You saw what they missed in 30 seconds. Imagine what you could do with actual time." I can't just... Name your price." I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "I'm not for sale." One of his men moved, but Valentino raised a hand, stopping him. Those dark eyes fixed on me with something that might have been respect, or amusement, or both. "Everyone has a price, Bianca. Not me. No?" He took a step closer, too close. I could smell his cologne, now cedar, and something darker, something that made my head spin. "What about your student loans? $83,000, give or take. What about the eviction notice taped to your apartment door 3 days ago? What about the fact that you're working yourself to death in a restaurant when you could be doing what you were meant to do?" My blood ran cold. "How do you know?" "I know everything I need to know." He said it simply, like it was obvious. Like privacy was a quaint concept that didn't apply to men like him. "I'm offering you a chance to use your skills, pay off your debt, and help someone who actually needs you. Why would you refuse?" "Because you're dangerous," I wanted to say. "Because everything about you screams power and violence in a world I don't belong in. Because the way you're looking at me right now makes me feel like I'm standing at the edge of a cliff, and one wrong move will send me falling." But Mrs. Valorian was watching me with such hope in her eyes, and my eviction notice was very, very real. "I need to think about it," I heard myself say. Valentino smiled. Actually smiled. It transformed his face from dangerous to devastating. "You have until tomorrow night." He pulled a card from his pocket-heavy stock, embossed lettering, and set it on the table. "My driver will pick you up at 8. We'll discuss terms. And if I say no?" His smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You won't." Thunder cracked outside, and the lights flickered again. He was right. God help me, he was right. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat on my threadbare couch in my soon-to-be former apartment, staring at Valentino Valorian's business card like it might explode. Heavy cardstock, matte black with silver lettering. No job title, just a name and a phone number. As if the name alone was credential. Enough. It probably was. I'd spent the hours after my shift doing what any rational person would do, Googling him. What I found made my hands shake so badly I nearly dropped my phone. Valentino Salvatore Valorian, 34, head of the Valorian family. And by family, the whispered articles and carefully worded news reports meant the kind that didn't gather for Sunday dinners, or rather, the kind that did, but with armed guards at every door. Suspected involvement in racketeering. No charges filed. Present at the scene of a warehouse fire that killed 3 rival family members. Airtight alibi. Known associate of I'd closed the browser before I could read more. Now, as weak morning light filtered through my stained curtains, I picked up the card again. My thumb traced the embossed letters, and I thought about Mrs. Valorian's trembling hands, her grateful smile, the way she'd looked at me like I was the first person in months to see her as human. I thought about my eviction. Notice. My student loans. The hospital that had laid me off after budget cuts, despite my perfect record. I thought about Valentino's eyes, dark and knowing and dangerous. "You won't say no." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "A car will arrive at 8 p.m. Wear something comfortable." I stared at the message. He hadn't even asked if I'd decided. He'd simply assumed. The arrogance should have angered me. Instead, it sent an unwelcome shiver down my spine. I typed back, "How did you get this number?" The response came immediately. "I get everything I want, Bianca. Remember that." At 7:45 p.m., I stood in front of my closet in my bra and jeans, trying to decide what something comfortable meant in Valentino Valorian's world. Everything I owned suddenly looked shabby, worn, insufficient. Finally, I settled on a simple navy sweater and my nicest jeans, which weren't saying much. I left my hair down, applied minimal makeup, and told myself this was just a meeting, a discussion. I could still walk. Away. Liar. At exactly 8 o'clock, a black Mercedes pulled up outside my building. The driver was one of the men from the restaurant, the older one, with kind eyes that didn't match the gun I'd glimpsed under his jacket. "Miss Moretti." He opened the rear door. "I'm Marco. Mr. Valorian is waiting." The interior smelled like leather and money. I sank into seats softer than my bed, trying not to touch anything, trying not to think about how cars like this didn't exist in my world. We drove through the city as rain began to fall again, leaving the cramped streets of my neighborhood for tree-lined avenues where the houses grew larger and the walls grew higher. 20 minutes later, we passed through iron gates that probably cost more than my nursing degree. The Valorian estate. I'd expected something ostentatious, marble columns, gold fixtures, the kind of wealth that screamed rather than whispered. Instead, the house was elegant, almost understated, stone and glass and perfectly manicured grounds. Old money. Power that didn't need to prove itself. Terrifying. Marco led me through the front entrance, where more of Valentino's men watched with calculating eyes. They didn't speak to me, but I felt their assessment, deciding if I was a threat, a curiosity, or prey. "Mr. Valorian is in his study," Marco said, gesturing down a hallway lined with artwork that probably belonged in museums. "Mrs. Valorian is resting, but she's eager to see you tomorrow if you accept." If the study door was open. I saw him before he saw me, or rather, before he acknowledged seeing me. Valentino stood by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the grounds, a tumbler of amber liquid in his hand, his profile sharp against the darkness outside. He'd removed his jacket. His white shirt was rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and scattered with scars. He looked more dangerous like this, less polished, more raw. "Come in, Bianca." He didn't turn. "Close the door." My pulse jumped. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I stepped inside and pushed the door shut with a soft click. "You came." Now, he turned, those dark eyes finding mine across the room. "I wasn't entirely certain you would. You sounded pretty confident in your text." His lips curved. I was confident. That doesn't mean I wasn't. Curious to see if my confidence was misplaced. He moved toward me, slow and deliberate, until only a few feet separated us. Close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Close enough that his presence felt overwhelming, magnetic, impossible to escape. "You researched me," he said. Not a question. "Of course I did." "And what did you find?" "That you're dangerous, that people who cross you tend to disappear, that you run an empire built on things I don't want to know about." I forced myself to hold his gaze. "That I should run as far from you as possible." "Smart girl." He took a sip of his drink, never looking away. "So why are you here?" "Because I'm desperate," I wanted to say. "Because your mother needs help and I need money, and somehow those two things aligned like fate or coincidence or a trap I can't see yet." Instead I said, "Tell me what you want from me. The real terms. No games." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise. Maybe. Or approval. "You take care of my mother. Physical therapy, pain management, companionship. You move into the guest house on the property. You're available whenever she needs you." He set down his glass. "In exchange, I pay you $5,000 a week, plus I clear your student debt entirely." The room tilted. That's insane. That's over $250,000 a year. My mother's health is worth more than money." His voice went cold. "Absolute. And I take care of what's mine." "What's mine?" The words hung between us, heavy with implication. "There has to be a catch," I whispered. Valentino stepped closer, and I felt the heat of him, the barely leashed power. "There is," he said softly. "Once you enter my world, Bianca, you don't leave. Not until I say you can." Thunder rumbled overhead. "Is that a threat?" His hand came up, fingers grazing my cheek so lightly I might have imagined it. "It's a promise." I moved into the guest house 3 days later with everything I owned fitting into 2 suitcases and a cardboard box. The guest house, calling it that felt like calling the ocean a puddle, was larger than my entire apartment building. 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen with appliances I didn't know how to use, a bathroom with a tub deep enough to drown in, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking gardens that probably required a full-time staff. I stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by my pathetic belongings, and tried not to feel like I'd sold my soul. "Miss Moretti?" A woman's voice came from the doorway. She was perhaps 50, with steel-gray hair and kind eyes that reminded me of my grandmother. "I'm Teresa. I manage the household. Mr. Valorian asked me to help you settle in." "I don't need much," I said quickly. "I'm used to taking care of myself." Her smile was gentle. "I'm sure you are, but this is different now. You're part of the estate." She moved into the kitchen, opening cabinets. "I've stocked basic groceries. If you need anything specific, just let me know. Meals can be delivered from the main house, or you can cook here. Whatever makes you comfortable." Comfortable. As if comfort was possible when I could see Valentino's study window from here, lit even now at 10 in the morning. As if I could forget the way he'd looked at me when I'd finally agreed to his terms, like he'd won something more significant than hiring a nurse. "Mrs. Valorian is expecting you at 11, Teresa continued. "I'll show you to her suite." Elena Valorian's rooms occupied the entire east wing of the main house. They'd been modified extensively, widened doorways, a hospital-grade bed that looked nothing like a hospital bed, equipment that probably cost more than most people's homes. But it was the woman herself who captured my attention. She sat in her wheelchair by the window, morning light painting her silver hair gold. She wore an elegant silk robe, pearl earrings, full makeup, dignity despite the circumstances, strength despite the trembling hands. "Bianca." Her face lit up. "You came. You actually came." I said I would. I moved closer, already assessing the way she held her right shoulder higher than her left, the barely perceptible wince when she breathed too deeply, the medication bottles lined up like soldiers on the nearby table. "People say many things." Her eyes held mine. "Few follow through when it involves my son's world. Your son made an offer I couldn't refuse." She smiled sadly. "He's good at that. But I like to think you're here for me, not just the money." The truth was complicated, so I settled for simplicity. "Tell me about your pain. Everything. Don't minimize it." For the next hour we talked. Really talked. Not the surface-level assessment I'd done at the restaurant, but a deep dive into her condition. The accident that had shattered her pelvis and compressed her spine. The surgeries that had saved her life but stolen her mobility. The phantom pains that woke her screaming at night. "The doctors give me pills," she said, gesturing to the bottles. "They make me foggy. Valentino hates when I'm foggy. He says it's like losing me twice." My chest tightened. "Does he visit often?" "Every morning, every evening, sometimes in between, if he can." Her voice softened. "He blames himself, you know, for the accident." I wanted to ask why, wanted to know if the whispers were true, if the car crash had been meant for him, if his mother had paid the price for his sins, but her eyes had grown distant, haunted. "Let's focus on what we can control," I said instead. "Your pain management, your mobility, starting today." Her hand found mine. "Thank you." I spent the afternoon developing a treatment plan, losing myself in the familiar rhythm of assessment and strategy, physical therapy protocols, pain management techniques that didn't rely solely on medication, small goals that would build toward larger ones. I was so absorbed that I didn't hear him enter. "You're frowning." I jumped, notes scattering across the desk. Valentino stood in the doorway of the guest house. My guest house, like he had every right to be there. Which, technically, he did. It was his property. Everything here was his. "You should knock," I said, gathering my papers with shaking hands. "I own the door." He stepped inside, and suddenly the spacious room felt claustrophobic. He'd changed from this morning's suit to dark jeans and a black Henley that did nothing to hide the dangerous lines of his body. More human. Somehow more threatening because of it. "How was your first day with my mother?" "Good. She's been neglected medically." "The previous nurses didn't." I cut myself off, aware I was criticizing his choices. "Go on." His voice was soft, dangerous. "Tell me what they didn't do." "They didn't listen to her. They followed protocols without adapting to her specific needs. She's not a textbook case. She's a person with complex trauma and pain that requires individualized care." He moved closer, and I forced myself to stand my ground. "And you can provide that care?" "Yes." "Why should I believe you?" "Because I saw what they missed in 30 seconds. I lifted my chin. "Because I actually care about helping her, not just collecting a paycheck. And because..." I stopped. "Because..." He was close enough now that I could see gold flecks in his dark eyes. Because I know what it's like to feel powerless in your own body, I whispered. To need help and have people treat you like you're invisible. Something shifted in his expression. His hand came up, fingers brushing my jawline with devastating gentleness. You're not invisible, Bianca. Not to me. My breath caught. Mr. Valentino. His thumb traced my lower lip. You live in my house now. Work for my family. You'll call me Valentino. That's not appropriate. Nothing about this is appropriate. His voice dropped to a whisper. But you're here anyway. Why is that? Because I needed the money. Because your mother needed help. Because some part of me wanted to step into this dangerous world and see if I could survive it. Because when you look at me like this, I forget how to breathe. I should go. I managed. It's late. It's 7 o'clock. Still. He stepped back, giving me space I wasn't sure I wanted. Tomorrow morning, we have breakfast together. You, me, and my mother. I want to hear your treatment plan. It wasn't a request. At the door, he paused. Bianca, welcome to the family. The door closed behind him, and I realized my hands were shaking. Not from fear, from something infinitely more dangerous. Breakfast in the Valorian household was nothing like I'd imagined. I'd expected formality servants hovering, crystal and china, the kind of stiff silence that came with old money. Instead, Elena's private dining room felt almost normal. Morning light streamed through tall windows. Coffee smelled rich and dark. Classical music played softly in the background. Almost normal, except for the armed guard outside the door, and the man sitting across from me, who commanded empires with a phone call. Valentino watched me over the rim of his coffee cup, those calculating eyes tracking every nervous movement. As I spread jam on toast I had no intention of eating. You're not hungry, he observed. I'm fine. You're terrified. Elena's voice was amused. She looked better this morning, brighter, more alert. Don't mind my son. He enjoys making people uncomfortable. It's a power thing. Mother. His tone held warning, but his lips curved slightly. What? It's true. She turned to me. Tell me about this treatment plan of yours. And don't hold back because Valentino's here. He needs to understand what I'm facing. I pulled out my tablet, grateful for something to focus on besides the weight of his stare. Your primary issues are nerve compression in your right shoulder, reduced mobility in your lower spine, and chronic pain that's being managed poorly with medication alone. The doctors said surgery, Valentino started, would risk paralysis. I interrupted, then immediately regretted it when his eyes darkened. I read her files. The scar tissue is too close to the spinal cord. Any surgical intervention could make things worse. Silence stretched between us. So what do you suggest? His voice was dangerously soft. Physical therapy, targeted massage, acupuncture if she's willing, gradual strengthening exercises. I met his gaze. It won't be fast, it won't be easy, but it's safer than surgery, and it addresses the root causes instead of just masking symptoms. Elena reached across the table, squeezing my hand. When do we start? Today. If you're ready. I've been ready for 6 months. Her eyes shimmered. I've just been waiting for someone who understood. We worked through the morning in Elena's therapy room, another space I hadn't known existed, filled with equipment that had clearly been used rarely, if at all. I guided her through gentle stretches, watching for signs of pain, adjusting pressure and position as needed. She was stronger than her doctors had given her credit for. Stubborn, too. I liked her immensely. Tell me about yourself, she said as I worked on her shoulder. You're too young to be this skilled. Where did you learn? My grandmother. The words came without thinking. She had MS. I took care of her for 3 years before she died. Learned more from her than any textbook. You loved her. She was everything to me. My throat tightened. My parents died when I was 16. Car accident. She raised me, put me through school, told me I could be whatever I wanted. And then I watched her body betray her, piece by piece, until I stopped, horrified I'd said so much. Elena's hand covered mine. Until you couldn't save her. No! The word barely made it past the lump in my throat. I couldn't. Is that why you became a nurse? To save others? Maybe. I blinked back tears. Or maybe I just needed to feel like I could fix something after watching everything fall apart. She was quiet for a moment. My son thinks he can fix everything too. Control everything. It's exhausting for him, being responsible for so much. I glanced toward the door, where I knew guards stood watch. He seems to handle it well. He handles it by never showing weakness, by making sure everyone fears him more than they love him. She sighed. Until you. My hand stilled. What? He looks at you differently. Like you're a problem he hasn't solved yet. Like you're dangerous. Her smile was sad. That's how I know you matter. I found him in the garden that evening, watching the sun set over the city. He'd shed his jacket again, loosened his tie. Shadows carved his profile into something both beautiful and brutal. She's resting, I said, approaching carefully. We did good work today. You did good work. He didn't turn. She smiled more this afternoon than she has in months. I heard her laughing. She's stronger than everyone thinks. I know. His voice roughened. I've always known. But watching her in that chair, knowing I'm the reason. He cut himself off, jaw clenching. I shouldn't have done it. Shouldn't have closed the distance between us. Shouldn't have touched him. But something in his pain called to something in mine, and before I could stop myself, my hand rested on his arm. It wasn't your fault. He turned then, and the rawness in his eyes stole my breath. You don't know that. I know she doesn't blame you. I know she loves you desperately, and would do it all again if it meant keeping you safe. How? Do you know that? His hand covered mine, holding it against his arm. You've known her for days. Because that's what mothers do. My voice cracked. They sacrifice everything, and they never, ever want their children to carry the guilt. His thumb stroked across my knuckles, and the world narrowed to that point of contact. Who hurt you, Bianca? What? Someone hurt you. I can see it in the way you flinch when people get too close, the way you expect the worst. He stepped closer, his free hand rising to cup my face. Who was it? That's none of your business. Everything about you is my business now. His voice dropped to a whisper. You live in my house, care for my mother, stand in my garden looking at me like what? I challenged, even as my heart hammered against my ribs. Like you're trying to decide if I'm going to break you or save you. Maybe I'm deciding if you're worth saving. The words hung between us, dangerous and true. His eyes darkened, and for one breathless moment, I thought he might kiss me. Wanted him to kiss me. Feared what would happen if he did. Instead, his phone buzzed. He stepped back, and the spell shattered. When he looked at the screen, his entire demeanor changed from vulnerable to lethal in a heartbeat. I have to go. His voice was cold now, controlled. The man from the garden replaced by the Mafia boss. Stay in the guest house tonight. Don't leave the grounds. Why? What's happening? He was already walking away. Lock your doors, Bianca. And whatever you hear tonight, whatever you see, stay inside. Valentino. He looked back, and the danger in his eyes made my blood run cold. Promise me. I promise. He disappeared into the darkness, and 10 minutes later, I heard cars leaving, engines roaring, men shouting in Italian. Somewhere in the distance, gunfire cracked through the night. I didn't sleep. How could I, when every car engine made me flinch? When shadows moved across the grounds like ghosts? When the silence between gunshots felt more terrifying than the shots themselves? I paced the guest house, phone clutched in my hand, debating whether to call the police. But what would I say? That the man who employed me had driven off into the night toward violence? That I was complicit now, living in luxury paid for by blood money? That some twisted part of me was more worried about him than afraid of him? At 3 a.m., headlights swept across my windows. I pressed against the glass, heart in my throat, as 3 black SUVs rolled through the gates. Men emerged, Valentino's men moving with military precision despite obvious exhaustion. One limped, another had his arm in a makeshift sling. Then Valentino stepped out of the lead vehicle. Even from this distance, I could see the blood on his white shirt. Dark stains across his chest and sleeve. He moved stiffly, favoring his left side, barking orders in Italian that sent his men scattering. I was out the door before I could think better. Of it, Miss Moretti. Marco materialized from nowhere, blocking my path. You should go inside. He's hurt. It's not his blood. The words should have reassured me. Instead, they made everything worse, the image of Valentino covered in someone else's blood. of what he'd done tonight, of who he really was beneath the expensive suits and careful control. But then he stumbled slightly, catching himself against the SUV, and I saw the way his face went white. "That's a lie," I said quietly. "And you know it." Marco's expression wavered. Then, almost imperceptibly, he stepped aside. I ran. Valentino looked up as I approached, and fury flashed across his features. "What are you doing out here? I told you to stay inside. You're bleeding." I reached for his shirt, but he caught my wrist. "It's nothing. Let me see. Bianca. Now." I used my nurse voice, the one that brooked no argument. "Unless you want to pass out in front of your men and look weak." His jaw clenched, but he released my wrist. Pride and pain warred in his expression before he finally nodded toward the main house. "Inside. Not here." He led me to his private study, the one I'd first met him in. This time, I saw details I'd missed: the wall safe behind a painting, the security monitors showing every angle of the property, the gun mounted beneath his desk. He shrugged off his ruined jacket, and I tried not to think about whose blood decorated it like abstract art. "Shirt off," I ordered, pulling supplies from the first aid kit Marco had wordlessly provided. Demanding. But he complied, wincing as he peeled the fabric away from his skin. My breath caught. His torso was a map of violence, old scars crisscrossing his ribs, a fresh gash along his side still bleeding sluggishly, bruises blooming purple across his abdomen. This was the body of a man who'd survived more than I could imagine, who wore war like a second skin. "It's not as bad as it looks," he said quietly. "It looks like you got stabbed, grazed. There's a difference." I pressed gauze against the wound, and he hissed through his teeth. "Sorry," I murmured, though I wasn't sure I meant it. He'd promised me safety, then driven off toward danger without explanation. "You're angry," he observed. "I'm terrified." The truth escaped before I could stop it. "You left. There was gunfire. You came back covered in blood. What am I supposed to feel?" His hand came up, tilting my chin until I met his eyes. "Relief that I came back at all. Is this normal for you? Violence in the middle of the night?" "It's necessary." His voice was flat, emotionless. Someone tried to move product through my territory without permission. I had to remind them why that's a mistake. Remind them. My hands trembled as I cleaned his wound. "You mean hurt them? Kill them?" "Yes." The simplicity of it, the lack of apology or justification, should have repulsed me. Instead, it felt almost honest. He wasn't pretending to be something he wasn't trying to convince me his hands were clean. "Why do you do it?" I whispered. "This life, this violence. You're smart enough, rich enough to do anything else." "Because it's who I am." His fingers traced my jawline, gentle despite everything. "My father built this empire. My grandfather before him. It's in my blood, Bianca, the same way healing is in yours. Healing and hurting aren't the same, aren't they?" His dark eyes held mine. "You tear down damaged tissue to help the body rebuild. You cause pain to facilitate healing. Sometimes destruction is necessary for survival. That's different, is it?" He leaned closer, and I could smell copper and gunpowder and that cedar cologne. "You think I enjoy this? The violence? The blood? I do it because if I don't, people I love die. My mother, my men, everyone who depends on me for protection. And if you weren't willing to kill for them, then I'd already be dead." He said it simply. "Absolutely. This world doesn't reward mercy, Kara. It rewards strength, fear, the willingness to do what others won't." I pressed a bandage against his side with more force than necessary. "Don't call me that." "What, Kara? I'm not your darling. I'm your employee." His laugh was dark, humorless. "You stopped being just an employee the moment you ran out here to check on me. The moment you touched me with hands that shake with fear but stayed anyway. I'm a nurse. It's my job to help people." "No." His hand covered mine against his bandaged ribs. "You're a woman who sees monsters and tries to heal them anyway. Who looks at me, really looks at me, and doesn't run screaming." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Do you have any idea how rare that is? How dangerous you are to me?" My pulse thundered. "I'm not dangerous to anyone. You're dangerous to me because you make me want things I can't have. Because when you look at me like this, like I'm a man instead of a monster, I start believing I could be different, could be better." His forehead rested against mine. "And that kind of hope will get me killed. Valentino, The door burst open. One of his men stood there, breathing hard. "Boss. We have a problem. Someone called the cops. Anonymous tip about gunfire. They're at the gates." Valentino was on his feet instantly, all vulnerability erased. "How long?" 3 minutes. Maybe less. He turned to me, his expression hard. "You were here all night. In the guest house. You heard nothing. Saw nothing. Understand? But, understand?" His hand gripped my shoulders. "They'll question you, Bianca. And you need to lie." "I don't lie." "Then learn." He pressed something into my hand. "A phone, different from mine. If they separate us, if anything happens, you call the number programmed in there. Only that number. Promise me." Blue and red lights flickered through the windows. "Promise me." His voice was desperate now, afraid in a way I'd never heard. "I promise." He kissed my forehead quick, fierce, then shoved me toward the door. "Marco, get her to the guest house. Make it look like she's been asleep." As I was pulled away, I looked back. Valentino stood in his blood-stained shirt, preparing to face the law with the same cold control he'd faced his enemies, and I realized I'd just agreed to protect a killer. Chapter 7. Shattered Illusions. Word count 1021. The police detective who questioned me had kind eyes and a wedding ring worn thin from years of wear. She reminded me of my grandmother, patient, observant, the type who noticed when you were lying. Miss Moretti. Detective Sarah Chen sat across from me in the guest house living room, notepad balanced on her knee. "You're sure you didn't hear anything unusual last night?" "I'm a heavy sleeper." The lie tasted like ash. "I took melatonin around 10. Didn't wake up until I heard cars this morning." "This morning?" She wrote something down. "Not at 3 a.m. when Mr. Valorian and his men returned?" My heart hammered, but I kept my expression neutral. Years of nursing had taught me to control my face during crisis. I didn't hear them come back. I was asleep. In a guest house 50 yards from where multiple vehicles arrived, with their engines running, men shouting, "I told you I took melatonin, and I wear earpids when I sleep." The city noise. I trailed off, hoping I sounded believable. Detective Chen's eyes held mine for a long moment, then she flipped her notebook closed. "Miss Moretti, I'm going to be honest with you. I've been investigating the Valorian family for 3 years. I know what Valentino Valorian is, what he does, and I know that people who work for him either become complicit in his crimes or become victims. I'm a nurse. I take care of his mother. I'm sure you do." Her voice softened. "And I'm sure Elena Valorian is a lovely woman who needs help. But that doesn't change what her son is, or what he'll do to protect his empire." She pulled out a business card, pressing it into my hand. "When you're ready to tell the truth, when you're ready to get out, call me. Any time, day or night. There's nothing to tell. Not yet." She stood, sympathy in her gaze. "But there will be. There always is with men like him." After she left, I sat in the silence, her card burning in my palm like an accusation. I found Elena in her therapy room, pretending to read but clearly waiting. She set down her book the moment I entered. "The police questioned you." "Not a question." "Yes." "What did you tell them?" "Nothing." I said I was asleep. Didn't hear anything. I moved to her wheelchair, needing the familiar routine of assessment to ground me. "But I lied to the police, Elena. I lied for him." "I know." Her hand found mine. "And I'm sorry you were put in that position." "What happened last night? Really?" She was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, "Someone tried to hurt our family. Valentino protected us. That's all you need to know." "By killing people? By doing what was necessary?" Her voice was steel beneath silk. "You think this life is simple? That men like my son have choices? They don't. They protect or they die. There is no middle ground." I pulled my hand away, suddenly angry. There's always a choice. He could walk away, do something legitimate. He has enough money. Money means nothing without power to protect it. Elena's eyes flashed. "Do you know why I'm in this chair, Bianca? Really?" My stomach dropped. The car accident. It wasn't an accident. It was a message from the Marchetti family, trying to force Valentino into giving up territory. Her voice shook. "They ran my car off the road, left me for dead. And do you know what my son did?" "I didn't want to know. God help me, I didn't want to know." "He declared war. Systematic, methodical, absolute. Within 6 months, The Marchetti family ceased to exist. Pride and sorrow warred in her expression. Not because he's a monster, because he loves me. Because in his world, you protect your family or you lose them. That doesn't make it right. No, it makes it survival. She reached for me again. I see the way you look at him, the way he looks at you, and I'm telling you this now. Before it's too late, loving my son means accepting all of him, the beautiful and the brutal. Can you do that? I don't love him, but the words felt hollow even as I said them. Not yet. Her smile was sad. But you will, and when you do, you'll have to decide if his world is one you can live in, or if you'll break both your hearts trying to change him into something he can never be. I found Valentino in the garden at dusk, in the same spot as yesterday, an eternity ago. Before I'd seen him bleed, before I'd lied to the police, before everything became impossibly complicated. He turned as I approached, and I saw exhaustion in every line of his body, the bandage beneath his shirt, the weight of his choices. You should be resting, I said. So should you. But here, we are. He studied my face. The police didn't believe you. How do you know? Because Detective Chen is smart, persistent. She knows you're lying. He turned back to the city lights. She'll keep watching you, waiting for you to break. Maybe I should. The words hung between us like a gunshot. He went very still. What? Maybe I should tell her the truth. About last night. About what you do. About all of it. I stepped closer, needing him to see my face. Because I can't keep doing this, living in your house, taking your money, lying to protect you while pretending I don't know what you are. And what am I, Bianca? His voice was dangerously soft. A killer, a criminal, someone who solves problems with violence. My voice cracked. Someone I should run from as fast as I can. Then run. He turned to face me fully, and the rawness in his eyes stole my breath. Leave tonight. I'll pay you for the month. Clear your debt anyway. You can disappear, start over, pretend you never met me. Just like that? Just like that. But his hands clenched at his sides. I won't stop you, won't chase you. You want out, Kara. I'll let you go. I should have said yes. Should have taken the escape he was offering. Should have walked away before I drowned in the darkness of his world. Instead, I heard myself whisper, "What if I don't want to go?" His eyes darkened. Then you're more dangerous than I thought. Why? He closed the distance between us in 2 strides, his hand cupping my face with devastating gentleness. Because staying means you've chosen this. Chosen me. And once you make that choice, Bianca, there's no taking it back. You'll be mine, in every way that matters. Protected. Possessed. Trapped in this life forever. My heart hammered against my ribs. That sounds like a threat. It's a warning. His thumb traced my lower lip. Last chance to run, Bella. After this, you're mine. I should have been terrified. Should have pushed him away. Instead, I rose on my toes and pressed my lips to his. The kiss was nothing like I'd imagined. Not soft or tentative or sweet. It was desperation and defiance. His hand fisting in my hair as he backed me against the garden wall. His other hand found my waist, pulling me flush against him, until I could feel the rapid beat of his heart matching mine. I gasped against his mouth, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until I forgot my own name, forgot the detective's business card burning in my pocket, forgot every reason this was wrong. All I knew was the taste of him, whiskey and danger, and something darker I couldn't name. The way his body pressed against mine, all controlled power and barely leashed need. The sound he made when my fingers traced the bandage beneath his shirt. Half pleasure, half pain. Bianca. My name was a prayer and a curse on his lips. Tell me to stop. No. His forehead pressed against mine, breath ragged. You don't understand what you're doing. What this means. Then show. I met his dark eyes, seeing my own recklessness reflected back. Show me who you really are. Something flickered across his face, warning. Desire. A fear so profound it made my chest ache. Then he took my hand and led me through the gardens toward the main house. We passed guards who suddenly found the ground fascinating, climbed stairs I'd never noticed. At the top, double doors opened to reveal his private wing. His bedroom was nothing like I'd expected. No ostentatious displays of wealth. Just clean lines, dark wood, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city he controlled. A king's domain, stark and beautiful and terrifying. He released my hand, putting distance between us. Last chance. I closed the space he'd created. Stop giving me chances to leave. I'm trying to be honorable. I don't want your honor. My hands found his chest, feeling his heart race beneath my palms. I want the truth. All of it. No more protection. No more pretty lies. Show me the man. Underneath the monster everyone fears, his control snapped. He kissed me again, harder this time, walking me backward until my knees hit his bed. But he didn't push, didn't take. Instead, his hands framed my face with a gentleness that made my eyes burn. You want the truth? His voice was raw. The truth is, I'm terrified of you. Of this. Because everyone I've ever loved, I've destroyed. My father dead because he taught me this business. My mother broken because I wasn't careful enough. Every woman who's ever gotten close, I'm not them. No. His thumb traced my cheekbone. You're worse. You're the first person who's made me want to be different. Who makes me think maybe I could be more than what I am. And that hope, Kara, that hope will get us both killed. I pulled him down to me, then let it kill us. We didn't make love. Not completely. Instead, we existed in that breathless space between restraint and surrender, his hands learning every curve of my body over my clothes, my fingers tracing every scar on his skin. He told me stories with each mark. A knife fight at 17, a bullet graze at 20, the burn scar from saving his mother from a fire, each scar a reminder of the violence that shaped him. Does it hurt? I whispered, fingers ghosting over the fresh bandage on his ribs. Everything hurts, but his voice held no self-pity. You learn to live with it, use it. Pain reminds you you're alive. I pressed a kiss to the bandage, feeling him tense beneath me. I could make it better. You already do. His hand tangled in my hair, tilting my face up. Just by being here, by not running when you should. Why do you keep saying that? That I should run? Because I know how this ends, Bianca. Anguish filled his eyes. I've seen it before. Someone threatens you to get to me. Or you see something you can't unsee, and the woman looking at me isn't filled with desire anymore, it's horror. Or, his voice cracked. Or, I fail to protect you, and you end up like my mother. Broken. Or worse. I cupped his face, forcing him to see me. Or maybe I'm stronger than you think. Maybe I can handle your world. Maybe I choose you, knowing exactly what I'm getting into. You don't know, then tell me. I sat up, straddling his hips, my hands on his chest. Tell me everything. Every dark secret. Every terrible thing you've done. Because I'm tired of half-truths and protection. I'm in this now, Valentino. All the way in. So, stop trying to save me from you and just be honest. He stared at me for a long moment, something like awe in his expression. Then he sat up, cradling me against him, and began to talk. He told me about his first kill at 19, a man who'd tried to assault one of their dancers. How he'd felt nothing but cold satisfaction watching the light leave his eyes. He told me about the territories he controlled through fear and force, the politicians in his pocket, the judges who ruled in his favor, the intricate web of corruption and violence that kept his empire running. He told me about the nightmares his mother's screams, his father's last breath, the faces of every person he'd killed, how he woke up sometimes not knowing if he was monster or man. And I listened, absorbed every confession, felt the weight of his sins settle onto my shoulders alongside my own choices. Say something, he whispered finally. Tell me you're horrified. Tell me you were wrong. Give me a reason to let you go. I kissed him instead, slow and deep and deliberate. When I pulled back, I held his gaze. I'm not going anywhere. Bianca, I see you, Valentino. All of you. The killer and the son. The monster and the man. And I'm choosing to stay anyway. My voice shook but held firm. So, stop pushing me away and let me in. Really in. No more walls. No more distance. Just us. Something broke in his expression, relief and terror and desperate need. He pulled me down into another kiss, and this time there was no hesitation, no holding back. Mine, he breathed against my lips. Say it. Yours, I whispered back, sealing my fate. Outside, thunder rumbled. Inside, we crossed a line neither of us could uncross. And somewhere in the darkness, danger watched and waited for its moment to strike. The choice was made. The line was crossed. But in Valentino Valorian's world, love and death walked hand in hand, and I'd just signed up for both. I woke to silk sheets and an empty bed. Morning light filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, painting Valentino's bedroom in shades of gold. My clothes from last night lay scattered across the floor, a trail of evidence leading to the moment everything changed. My body ached in ways that had nothing to do with pain and everything to do with the man who'd worshipped every inch of me until dawn, who'd whispered my name like a prayer, who'd held me afterward like I might disappear if he let go. The man who was currently nowhere to be found. I pulled on his shirt, still carrying his cedar scent, and padded barefoot toward voices drifting from downstairs. As I descended, fragments of Italian reached me. Valentino's voice, sharp with command. Another man responding with obvious tension. I paused outside his office door, suddenly uncertain. Last night had felt inevitable, perfect, right. But morning brought reality crashing back. I was still the nurse who'd stumbled into his world. He was still the Mafia boss who controlled an empire through fear. What were we now? The office door opened before I could decide. Marco stood there, his expression unreadable. Miss Moretti. Mr. Valorian is expecting you. I didn't mean to interrupt. You're not interrupting. But something in his tone suggested otherwise. Valentino sat behind his massive desk, phone pressed to his ear, fury radiating from every line of his body. When he saw me, his expression shifted, softened for just a moment before the cold mask slammed back into place. He ended the call with a curt phrase in Italian, then gestured Marco out. The door clicked shut, leaving us alone. You should have stayed upstairs, he said quietly. I heard voices. I faltered, suddenly feeling foolish in his oversized shirt, bare legs, hair tangled from his hands. Should I go? Come here. His voice was rough. I moved around the desk, and he pulled me into his lap, burying his face against my neck. I felt him breathe me in, felt the tension in his shoulders that spoke of problems I couldn't see. What's wrong? I asked. Everything. He lifted his head, and I saw exhaustion in his eyes. Fear, barely masked. The police are pushing harder. Detective Chen requested warrants. And last night's incident. It started a chain reaction. I can't stop. What kind of chain reaction? The kind that ends in war. His hand cupped my face. The Rossini family thinks I'm weak. That hitting their operation means I'm desperate, losing control. They're mobilizing, planning retaliation. My stomach dropped. Against you? Against everyone I care about. His thumb traced my lower lip. I need to send you away. Today. Somewhere safe where they can't reach you. No. Bianca. No. I gripped his shirt. You don't get to make love to me all night, tell me I'm yours, and then ship me off like cargo when things get dangerous. I chose this. I chose you. I'm not running. This isn't about running. It's about surviving. Desperation crept into his voice. If they find out about you, if they know what you mean to me, they'll use you, hurt you, kill you just to make me bleed. Then don't let them find out. It's too late for that. He turned his computer screen toward me. The photo made my blood run cold. Me, in the garden last night, in Valentino's arms. Our kiss captured in perfect detail, time-stamped, watermarked with a symbol I didn't recognize, but that made Valentino's jaw clench. They already know, he said softly. Someone's been watching, waiting, and now they have proof that you're my weakness. I stared at the photo, at the evidence of our recklessness. Who sent this? The Rossini family. A warning shot. He closed the laptop with controlled violence. They're telling me they can reach anyone, anytime, that nobody I love is safe. So what do? We do nothing. You leave. I handle this. And your mother? I challenged. You're going to send her away too? Uproot her from her home, her recovery, everything she knows? His silence was answer enough. You can't protect everyone by hiding them away, Valentino. Sometimes you have to stand and fight. Together. You don't understand what you're asking. Then help me understand. I slid off his lap, needing distance to think. Explain to me how sending me away solves anything. They already know about me. They already have that photo. What's to stop them from coming after me wherever I am? But now, without your protection, without your men, without... The explosion cut me off. The sound was deafening, windows shattering, alarms screaming, the floor beneath us trembling. Valentino had me on the ground before I could process what happened, his body covering mine as debris rained down. Stay down! His voice was raw command. Gunfire erupted. Close, too close. I heard shouting in Italian, Running footsteps, more gunshots. Valentino was up in an instant, grabbing a gun from under his desk. "Marco!" The door burst open. Marco's face was bloodied, his shirt torn. They breached the east gate. At least 15 men. Rossini family insignia. My mother, Teresa, has her in the safe room. But boss, they knew exactly where to hit. Someone gave them our security layout. Betrayal. The word hung unspoken but deafening. Valentino's face went absolutely cold. Lock down the house. Full protocol. And find the leak. He turned to me, gripping my shoulders. "Bianca, listen to me very carefully. Marco is going to take you to the panic room. You, stay there. No matter what you hear, no matter how long it takes, you don't come out until I come for you. Understand? What about you? I'm ending this." He kissed me hard, desperately. "If something happens, if I don't make it back, there's an envelope in the top drawer. Instructions, money, everything you need to disappear. Promise me you'll use it. Valentino, please, promise me." Tears burned my eyes. "I promise." Another explosion rocked the house. Closer this time. He pressed something into my hand. Cold, heavy metal, a gun. "Safety's on. Point and squeeze if anyone comes through that door who isn't me or Marco." His eyes held mine. "I love you, Bianca. I should have said it sooner. Should have said it last night. But I love you, and I'm going to keep you safe even if it kills me." Then he was gone, disappearing into smoke and chaos and violence. Marco pulled me toward a hidden door I'd never noticed. "Move, now." As we descended into darkness, I heard Valentino's voice rise above the carnage, cold, commanding, absolutely lethal. The monster they feared had been unleashed, and I prayed to God he'd survive it. Because I'd just realized something terrifying. I loved him too. The panic room was a concrete tomb 6 feet underground. Elena sat in her wheelchair beside me, Teresa hovering nearby with a first aid kit she kept checking compulsively. We'd been down here for 2 hours, maybe 3. Time felt elastic in the darkness, measured only by the muffled sounds of violence above our heads. Gunfire, shouting, something heavy crashing. Then silence. The silence was worse. Elena's hand found mine, cold and trembling. "He'll be okay. My son always survives. You don't know that." My voice cracked. "I know him. I know he'll fight like hell to get back to us. To you." She squeezed my fingers. "He told me, you know. This morning, before everything went to hell, he told me he'd found something worth protecting more than his empire." My throat tightened. He shouldn't have said that. "Why? Because it's true?" Her smile was sad in the emergency lighting. "Love isn't weakness, Bianca. It's the only thing that makes any of this bearable. The violence, the fear, the constant weight of responsibility. Love is what keeps us human." The door lock clicked. Teresa immediately positioned herself in front of Elena, producing a gun I didn't know she carried. I raised mine with shaking hands, remembering Valentino's instructions. "Point and squeeze." The door opened slowly. Marco stepped through, and I nearly collapsed with relief. Then I saw the blood soaking his shirt, the exhaustion in his eyes, and fear crashed back. "It's over," he said quietly. "You can come up." "Valentino?" The name barely made it past my lips. "Waiting for you." Something in his expression shifted. "You should prepare yourself, Miss Moretti." It was bad. The main house looked like a war zone. Shattered windows, bullet holes in the walls, blood so much, blood staining the marble floors. Men moved through the wreckage with grim efficiency, clearing bodies, documenting damage, making the evidence of violence disappear like magic. I found him in the garden. He stood with his back to me, shoulders rigid, hands clenched at his sides. His shirt was destroyed, revealing the bandage I'd placed yesterday, now soaked through with fresh blood. More blood marked his arms, his face, his hands. "Valentino." My voice shook. He turned, and my heart shattered. His face was a mask of controlled devastation, split lip, bruised jaw, a cut above his eyebrow, still bleeding. But it was his eyes that destroyed me, dark and hollow and carrying a weight I couldn't begin to measure. "You should have stayed downstairs," he said quietly. "Marco said it was over." "It is." He looked past me toward the house. 12 of theirs dead, 4 of mine wounded. One won't make it. His voice was flat, emotionless. The voice of a man who'd shut down everything to survive. And the leak was found. "Who?" "My cousin, Antonio." Something flickered across his face. "Grief," quickly buried. He'd been feeding information to the Rossinis for months, thought they'd offered him a better deal, more power, more money. His laugh was bitter. He died believing it. The implication hung between us. You killed him, I whispered. I did what was necessary. He finally looked at me, and I saw the plea beneath the coldness, the desperate need for me to understand, to not turn away. He betrayed our family, compromised my mother's safety, put you in danger. There was only one response. I should have been horrified, should have seen the monster everyone warned me about. Instead, I saw a man who'd been forced to execute his own blood to protect the people he loved, who'd bear that scar forever alongside all the others. I closed the distance between us and wrapped my arms around his waist, careful of his injuries. Felt him go rigid with shock before his arms came around me, crushing me against him with desperate strength. I thought I'd lost you, he breathed against my hair. When that first explosion hit, all I could think was that I'd brought you into my world and gotten you killed, that your blood would be on my hands like everyone else's. But it's not. I pulled back to look at him. I'm here. I'm alive. We both are. For now. His hand cupped my face. But this won't be the last time, Bianca. This life, my life, it's an endless cycle of violence and retaliation, of loving people and watching them become targets, of choosing between protecting them and destroying myself in the process. I know. Do you? Do you really understand what you're signing up for? His thumb traced my cheekbone. Bodyguards everywhere you go. Threats you can't see coming. The constant fear that someone will use you to hurt me. Children, if we ever have them, growing up surrounded by danger. Is that really what you want? I want you. The words came, out fierce, certain. I want mornings waking up in your arms. I want helping your mother heal. I want being part of something bigger than myself, even if it's complicated and dangerous and wrong by everyone else's standards. I gripped his shirt. I want a life with you, Valentino. However long we get, however dangerous it is, I choose you. I choose this. And I'm not changing my mind. He stared at me for a long moment, something like wonder in his eyes. Then he kissed me soft and reverent and tasting of blood and smoke and desperate relief. Marry me, he whispered against my lips. My heart stopped. What? Marry me, he pulled back, deadly serious. Not someday. Not when things are safer. Now. Today. Because I've spent my whole life building walls and keeping people at a distance, and you tore through every defense like they were paper. Because when I thought I might die today, all I could think was that I'd never made you really mine, never given you my name, never stood in front of God and my family, and declared that you're the only thing in this world more important than power. Tears streamed down my face. You're insane. Probably. His smile was crooked, beautiful despite the blood. But I'm your kind of insane. So what do you say, Bianca Moretti? Will you become Bianca Valorian and let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you? Above us, storm clouds gathered. Behind us, his world waited dangerous, violent, impossible. But in his eyes, I saw my future. Complicated and terrifying and absolutely right. Yes, I whispered. Yes. He kissed me again as thunder rolled overhead, sealing a promise made in blood and ashes. And somehow, impossibly, I'd never felt safer. In Valentino Valorian's world, love was a weapon and a weakness. But as his ring slid onto my finger 3 hours later, a simple ceremony with his mother crying and his men standing guard, I realized something profound. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is choose. Love anyway, and pray like hell that it's enough to survive the darkness. It would have to be, because there was no going back now. 6 months later, I woke to the sound of rain against windows and the warmth of Valentino's body curved around mine. Some mornings, I still couldn't believe this was my life, that the ring on my finger was real, that the man who'd once terrified me now held me like I was something precious he was afraid to break. You're thinking too loud, he murmured against my neck, voice rough with sleep. How do you know I'm thinking? Because your breathing changes. You get tense. His hand splayed across my stomach, protective and possessive. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I turned in his arms to face him. Morning light caught the scar above his eyebrow, a permanent reminder of the day everything changed. I'm just happy, and it scares me sometimes. His dark eyes studied my face with that intensity that still made my pulse race. Why does happiness scare you? Because I know what you had to sacrifice for it. What we both did. I traced the newest scar along his collarbone, earned in a skirmish 2 months ago. Sometimes I wonder if we're tempting fate. If being this happy means something terrible is coming. Something terrible is always coming, Kara. He caught my hand, pressing a kiss to my palm. That's the nature of this life. But we face it together now. You, me, my mother, our family, our family. The words still sent warmth through my chest. Elena had made remarkable progress. She could stand now with assistance, take small steps with her walker. The physical therapy was brutal, but she approached it with the same iron will that had kept her alive through the accident. Last week, she'd walked to the garden unassisted only 10 steps, but she'd cried in my arms after like she'd climbed a mountain. Speaking of family, Valentino said carefully, "My mother wants to throw you a proper wedding reception. Something big, public. She says 3 witnesses, and a judge doesn't count as celebrating." I groaned. "Valentino, we talked about this. I know you don't need it, but she does. She wants the world to see that you're mine, that you chose this life, this family, me." His voice softened. "Let her have this. Let her celebrate something good after everything she's lost." He was right, of course. Elena had been planning this reception for months, pouring all her energy into something joyful instead of dwelling on pain. How could I deny her that? Fine, but nothing ostentatious. I mean it, Valentino. No ice sculptures or... He kissed me quiet, slow and deep and thorough. When he pulled back, his smile was wicked. I make no promises. My mother has very specific ideas about what constitutes appropriate. God help me. Too late for that, Signora Valorian. His hand slid beneath the silk of my nightgown. You sold your soul to the devil. Now you're stuck with me. I pulled him closer, feeling the familiar heat building between us. Good thing I like the devil. The reception was, predictably, excessive. The ballroom glittered with 1,000 candles. White roses, Elena's favorite, cascaded from every surface. A string quartet played softly as guests in designer gowns and expensive suits mingled, drinking champagne that probably cost more than my old apartment. But it was the people that made it real. Marco, acting as Valentino's best man, making a surprisingly heartfelt toast about loyalty and finding light in darkness. Teresa, who'd become more mother than housekeeper to me, crying openly as she hugged me. Even some of Valentino's associates, dangerous men with kind eyes who treated me with careful respect, offering congratulations. And Detective Chen. I found her near the exit, nursing a glass of wine and looking deeply uncomfortable in formal wear. "Detective." I approached carefully. "I didn't expect to see you here. Mrs. Valorian." Her smile was wry. "Your husband invited me. I think he enjoys making me uncomfortable." "He does." I couldn't help but smile. "But that's not why you came." She studied me for a long moment. "No, I came because I wanted to see if you were okay. Really okay, not just playing the part. I'm happy." The truth of it still surprised me sometimes. "I know you don't understand. I know you think I've made a terrible mistake. Actually, I don't." She set down her wine. "I've been watching you two. The way he looks at you. The changes in him since you arrived. He's still dangerous, don't mistake me, but he's also different, more human. And you're not a victim. You're not trapped. You're exactly where you choose to be." Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you for that." "Don't thank me yet. I'm still investigating your husband, and if he crosses certain lines, I'll do everything in my power to bring him down." Her expression softened. "But I'll try to keep you out of it, because I think you're good for him. And God knows, men like Valentino Valorian need someone good in their lives." She left after that, disappearing into the night, and I felt strangely lighter for the conversation. What did she want? Valentino appeared at my side, proprietary hand at my waist. To make sure I wasn't being held prisoner. His laugh was low, dangerous. "And what did you tell her?" "That I'm exactly where I want to be." I turned to face him fully, taking in the sight of him in his tuxedo, beautiful and brutal and absolutely mine. "Dance with me?" "Always." He led me onto the floor as the quartet shifted to something slow and romantic. His arms came around me, holding me close, and I rested my head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I love you," he murmured against my hair. "I know I don't say it enough. I know I'm not always good at showing it in ways that make sense. But you're everything to me, Bianca. My salvation, my redemption, the only truly good thing in my entire goddamn life." I looked up at him, seeing vulnerability beneath the dangerous exterior. I love you too. All of you. The darkness and the light, the monster and the man. Every beautiful, broken, impossible piece. He kissed me then in front of his men, his mother, his entire world like I was oxygen, and he was drowning. And as I kissed him back, I realized something profound. We were both beautifully scarred, both survivors of trauma and violence, and choices that couldn't be undone, both trying to build something good in a world that thrived on darkness. But together, we were enough. Broken pieces forming something whole. Light and shadow dancing in perfect balance. Love born from ashes and blood and desperate hope.